It's time to acknowledge reality, folks. After a devastating and historic loss, many Democrats are struggling to face a clear truth. Some want to blame race or misogyny for Kamala Harris's defeat, but those arguments don't hold up. America elected Barack Obama twice. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in 2016. Therefore, this loss isn't about race or gender. It's about a Democratic Party that has fundamentally broken the trust of its voters. And the signs have been there for many, many years. Over the past decade, the Democrats have purposefully ignored the people's demands time and time again. From the housing crisis under Obama to sidelining Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020, the party has shown a consistent, alarming pattern of prioritizing elites over everyday Americans. Let's break this down with 5 clear examples that show exactly how the Democratic Party has eroded America's trust. First, the housing crisis. Under Obama, millions of middle-class Americans lost their homes while the administration bailed out Wall Street. A staggering 10 million foreclosures left families devastated, particularly in Black and Latino communities, stealing the future of prosperity for many forever. This was a betrayal that the working class hasn't and will never forget. Then came 2016. Bernie Sanders built a grassroots movement which captured the frustrations of all working Americans. He fueled a spirit that hadn't been seen since the Civil Rights Movement. People had real hope. Finally, someone voicing the heart of our concerns and frustrations. But the Democratic elite worked tirelessly and behind the scenes to ensure Hillary Clinton, a deeply unpopular candidate, won the nomination. Once again, prioritizing that of an elite out-of-touch class over the working class. We noticed this sleight of hand, and guess what? WikiLeaks revealed this betrayal, and voters stayed home. What was the result? A Trump victory. By 2020, Sanders once again galvanized voters and was able to capture that sense of hope, that sense of a real fundamental change. He was poised to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, and we thought this could really be a moment in American history where government shows everyone in a real and visible way that they will and can work for us. But instead, once again, the party elite rallied to sideline Bernie. And they weren't even secretive about it. They chose Joe Biden, an aging, out-of-touch candidate, despite clear signs of dementia or some mental decline that he wasn't up to the job. The result was predictable, a presidency marred by disconnection from the public's pain. And once again, people grew deeper frustration with this theft over and over again of a true democratic process. And now, 2024. Democrats ignored calls for a Democratic primary, where the Democratic base could have had a hand in deciding our nominee, and instead pushed Kamala Harris, a candidate who was clearly not the right fit for the moment. Kamala, clearly disliked, lost her 2019 presidential bid in a historic fashion then. Meanwhile, Americans expressed their frustrations about inflation, healthcare, housing, and the economy. To answer those cues, Harris offered vague promises and refused to address the issues head-on. Meanwhile, Republicans named the problems, called them out. Whether genuine or not, people liked that, diagnosing the very discontent that Democrats pretended didn't exist, just like Bernie Sanders. Once again, Democrats showing their incessant need to prioritize the Democratic elite. This time, everyone noticed and voted accordingly. The results clearly speak for themselves. A catastrophic loss, with swing states gone and even solid blue states showing massive Republican gains. Exit polls reveal the truth. Voters don't trust the Democratic Party anymore. They don't trust that they will ever listen or lead. This wasn't just a referendum on Kamala Harris, it was a damning indictment of the Democratic leadership as a whole. And Democratic leadership have no one to blame but themselves. The Democratic Party has shifted from being the voice of the working class to a party dominated by cultural and economic elites. Time and time again, decision after decision they have made clearly demonstrates this. When people said the economy felt dystopian, Democrats pointed to macroeconomic numbers and dismissed their lived realities. When people said they wanted a shot at the American dream, Democrats talked about Trump being an existential threat. When the people said, "I feel like the American dream is now a fantasy," Democrats talked about Ukraine. The disconnect couldn't have been more glaring, and the resulting election more obvious. People trusted Bernie Sanders because he named the problems, he addressed the issues. And when Democrats worked to suppress that kind of populism, they alienated their base. Now, we're left with the wreckage of a party that's failed to adapt, failed to listen, and failed to lead. President Biden's hubris may have been the single biggest factor in this collapse. From the start, he framed his presidency as a one-term mission to defeat Trump. But his refusal to step aside, despite obvious signs of cognitive decline, cost the party dearly. Democrats circled the wagons, shielding him from scrutiny instead of empowering voters to choose their own path forward. That arrogance has led to this moment, a historic failure. Also take a moment to acknowledge that Biden is an unambiguous and abject failure. His one and only stated mission to defeat Trump failed miserably. And Kamala Harris? She was the wrong person for this moment, thrust into an impossible position by a party that refused to pivot, refused to listen, refused to learn. The damage done to her reputation, to the Democratic Party, and even to the possibility of future women candidates is staggering. Not because women can't lead, but because now there is a permeating misconception that women aren't electable for president. That is devastating. It's time for Democrats to acknowledge reality, to own the catastrophic errors of Biden's presidency, the arrogance of the party elite, and the disconnect with working Americans. This wasn't just a loss, it was a reckoning. If the Democratic Party can't reflect and rebuild, this could be the end of its modern identity. What do you think? Can the Democrats recover from this? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Political Pulse 2.0 for more deep dives into the stories shaping our nation.